one, statement in that book that resonated with me so deeply, and it was to, take full responsibility of yourself and for yourself. You know, even if it's not your fault, and clearly the earthquake wasn't my fault, whatever the situation you find yourself in, don't blame anyone else, don't blame the situation, and just sort yourself out.
Hi, this is Robert on the weekly Side Hustle podcast. And we have an extremely special guest today coming to you from down under in New Zealand. Dean Norrie, he's a co-publisher with Brian Tracy. He's got a international coaching program. He's spoken on many stages. And we met through the Brian Tracy group. Dean, so happy to have you on. I know you're up early there in NZ town, but thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Yes, actually Tuesday morning here in New Zealand. So how does it feel like talking to someone from the future?
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. It always reminds me, with all these time zones now, we work with a team in the Philippines. So with all these time zones, it reminds me of the Superman movie where he was flying backwards around the earth to try and bring someone back to life, trying to turn back time. So don't we wish we could do it? That would be a multi-billion dollar company.
To tell you a little bit about what you've got to look forward to in the future.
Let's
tomorrow.
do it. Let's do it.
Yeah,
what do we got? Who won the rugby game? Who won the football match? And let us know so we can put our bets down.
Well, the All Blacks, of course, but
there you go.
So for people who want to know what the future is going to be like, it's I can give you a little bit of an insight there. It's going to be a little bit like the present, actually, but the same, but a little bit different. There's a mix of opportunity and danger there,
Opportunity. I like the opportunity.
It depends what you're looking for. It's opportunity and danger. The key is to be focused on solving the problems and seeking that opportunity, not getting bogged down in that crisis or that danger. So yeah, that's what we've got to look for.
That is sound advice, and I know that's what you're all about. And people watching this, we're recording this from Canada, but if you're watching this from New Zealand or peripheral countries where Dean does business, you can go to his website. It'll be in the links or somewhere around the podcast channel here, bettabusiness.com, Betta Business. So Dean, tell us a little bit about what you're doing now, but then, we'll go back to where you started, how you got into the business today. So tell us what you're doing now.
Oh, that's a great question. Look, in 2020, we all had this crisis to deal with. We're in lockdown, and our businesses were struggling, and just everything. It was it was a difficult time. The markets were crashing. I was actually turning 50, and it was almost like okay, what's next? I've had some relatively good success with my business ventures previous, but where do I want to head to now? And it sort of came to me. I asked a couple of questions. One question was, how can I be useful in this moment, and what can I how can I make this crisis, in a way, my greatest opportunity? And it might sound a little bit selfish, but in a mindset, in a feeling of service to others. So I decided, look, I'm going to sign up to New Zealand Business Mentors Association, which is a voluntary business mentors group in New Zealand that's been around for 35 years. So I signed up and was helping struggling businesses sort of get through that tough period of time, and realized I really had a passion for that and really enjoyed that. Hence starting actually a side hustle with bettabusiness.com. And look, I haven't looked back. I've just really enjoyed working with my clients, and I'm really enjoying getting great success for them and finding it's actually like being a father to many. It's actually, honestly, Robert, it's almost like I finally, in service to many, you find full fulfillment in life. And this is the fact. I mean, for many years, I've worked so hard in my businesses, me, to produce the results I wanted, to get to where I want to be for my family. But now it's a little bit about giving back and how can I help? And, this is a really exciting period of my life, and I'm looking forward to it. Yes.
Yeah, but with all of us, the success, it wasn't always like this, was it? Tell us a little bit about Dean. Did you do it, home of the All Blacks and the world dominating rugby squad? but did you play any rugby, any sports growing up? Where did you go to high school? Tell us a little bit about, how you got to where you got into better business.
Yeah, sure. Look, I grew up in New Zealand and Christchurch. It sort of went to the school of hard knocks, if you heard that saying. Look, haven't we all had a lot of failures throughout our lives? And, I'm no exception. But, the day I was born, I actually went into heart failure and was taken away from my mother's arms and put on a plane sent to Auckland. And, my parents were told, look, it's a 50-50 chance. And I was what's called a blue baby. It's where there's a hole in the heart that's supposed to close up when you're born and you pump your own blood, but mine didn't. And anyway, I was away for 10 days and good luck would have it that it closed and I was flying back to Christchurch and reunited with my family for the first time, basically. You
So
know,
Dean does have a heart. He does have a heart.
exactly.
Contrary to what everybody told me about you, Dean, I take it all back.
Absolutely. Look, and you're right. Unfortunately, I didn't finish high school. My father's a builder, and his father sort of pretty much set him up in the building industry, got him a job, and my father thought that's what you're supposed to do. So he took me out of school, and all of a sudden I'm on a building site at 15. And welcome to the real world. Guess what, son? Now you're a big working man. You pay board. So that was a real kind of wake up call to to reality. But look, it was something. I sort of grew up on a building site, but it was something that it wasn't really my passion. But look, I finished my apprenticeship, and the building firm I worked for, just out of the market crash of '87, laid off all its apprentices, which was difficult in a sense because what was I going to do now? And it was actually 2 years before I actually got employment again. But it was the greatest opportunity because I got to study and go back to school and follow my passion, which was to be a photographer. And that would set me on the path of a 25-year successful career around the world, working in Europe, Australia, the US. I worked shooting fashion in Europe. I worked for event companies. I worked for portrait studios. But I realized and also was lucky to work on a cruise ship company where I got to travel to a lot of places around the world as a photographer. Did so well, they promoted me to a chief photographer, and it was 4 years. And my last contract was actually operations manager, where I would go on. They had 15 different ships in the concession, and I'd go on in every ship and kind of try and improve the sales system, train the staff, and I had great success. But I wasn't getting any younger at 36. It was like, okay, I want to do this for myself. I want to come back to New Zealand, set up a business. So I did this, and that was great. Got back to New Zealand in 2006, and I sort of made a dream board. I'm really big on personal development, and I started cutting out these photos of what I wanted, and picture of a house, and like a woman. I wanted to find a lovely lady to marry, and the family and the car and the dog and the whole thing, right? And this is about the time I was setting up my studio, and I actually never got round to pinning it up on a board, but I put it in an envelope and stored it away. And you wouldn't read about it, but 2 years later, I'd had it all. And it wasn't until we moved with my wife into our new house that I found that envelope and I opened it up. And you honestly, it was mind-boggling, mind-blowing. I actually had to go around and show my parents. It was like, look, this is the photo of the house that I, imagined. Look at this woman. Look at my wife. It's the same person almost. You know what I mean? The dog. We had a small dog. It was a miniature schnauzer, very similar to the photo. And what's even more freaky is 2 years later, we had a baby daughter, Grace, and the photo was of a baby girl. I mean, come on. Wow. So it's like
I'm going to give
just
you a quick backstory about a world famous photographer. And I won't give you the name right out, but we were at an event in Mexico and they invited him in as a speaker from the UK. And he's photographed the last 12 or 15 presidents. But he started out working with British Vogue magazine he wanted to learn photography. And his first job, his first task was to go out and do this photo shoot for an American actor. And he was asking somebody about the photo shoot, and they said, yeah, the other two, why did he get this gig? And he said the other two photographers didn't want it, but he read in the papers the next morning that one of the other photographers was assaulted by this actor. So he's going out, he's never done a photo shoot before, And he gets there, and the actor says, "You better get this right, or you're not going to have a job tomorrow." And he got so nervous he passed out. This is his first job, and he
Wow.
he said that he came to, and the actor was over him and said, "Hey, I'm so sorry." He goes, "My career is depending on this photo shoot." And the actor was Anthony Hopkins, and the photo shoot was for Silence of the Lambs.
Oh,
And
wow.
that launched Platone into stardom. So take every opportunity you can get. And then after the event, I of course worked my way up to him. I said, "Platone," I said, "Could I get a selfie with you?" Right? With he said even better. He said, "Let me." He said, "May I use your phone?" And he takes my phone and he does a few little adjustments on it and he holds it out and he goes, "Okay, smile. No, lift your chin up, turn a bit." And he snapped a couple pictures. I'll share them on the links here. And then he
Yeah.
he said, "How do you like it?" I said, "Wow, thank you so much. Very gracious of you to take your time to do that." And he said, "Not only that," he goes, "I just saved you $100,000."
Wow. Insane.
So you
Oh,
can you
great
can make
story.
a career out of anything. And I worked in the trade, similar story to you. And I remember you mentioning that. That's why if you didn't mention that, I was going to bring it up. So where did you go from this, the recession you talked about, 2 years off? Where did you go from there?
Yeah, look, it was a difficult time because in 2008, with the global credit crunch, I mean, I had a physical studio that was specializing in family portraits. I mean, have you heard of Pixie Photos? It was an international, family photography business. I mean, I had the aspirations to growing my family portrait studio, which was called Kidstar Studios, to be a little bit like the Pixie brand, but way better quality and way better branding, and franchised it out. But of course, the market crash and the global credit crunch sort of pretty much stemmed that. And look, we had to close the studio down, and but it was okay. Look, I was also branching into wedding photography, so we kind of established the business back to our house. I sort of converted the garage into a studio where I'd have my clients, and look, everything was going so well, right? But unfortunately, like life, crisis was lurking around that next corner. And I don't know if you heard about the Christchurch earthquakes in 2011. It was honestly just the 22nd of February 2011 was mind-blowing stuff. It was, look, there was 187 people died on that day, and we all knew someone that died. There was nearly 6,000 people really critically injured on that day. And look, we were all stressed out, and our businesses were severely suffering. I mean, the CBD of Christchurch itself was in lockdown, had a military cordon around the CBD, and it was honestly locked down for 6 months, and until the first project started to happen, which was a container city that was built there. Look, over that next 12 months would be the most difficult time of my life. I would say it would be my midlife crisis. I seriously didn't know how I was actually going to get through, because we'd only bought a house 2 years prior. My wife was pregnant. She's a nurse, and she was going to take 12 months off on maternity leave. My photography business, specializing in weddings,
Was she
was
pregnant with the second child, or was that your daughter?
um, pregnant with our first child, Grace. So then, then 3 months after the major earthquake, my mother-in-law suddenly drops dead. Honestly, it was phenomenal. And that 12 months after, people didn't have running water. I mean, people didn't have flushing toilets. It was just third world stuff. And over those 12 months, there was four more big earthquakes, and there was over 12,000 aftershocks. So, our nerves were rattled to the bone. I mean, I really didn't know what to do, because the business was severely struggling. Mortgage rates back then were nearly 12%. And like, it was going to be my income to support the family. And I was really pulling my hair out. But I said, "Dean, you've got to pull yourself together, man." So I thought, well, what can I do? So I got to get well, because I was unwell. So I started walking every morning for about an hour. And I came past this bookshop. And of course, I went in and I came out with No Excuses by Brian Tracy. You wouldn't read about it. And there's one, statement in that book that resonated with me so deeply. And it was to, take full responsibility of yourself and for yourself. You know, Even if it's not your fault. And clearly the earthquake wasn't my fault. Whatever the situation you find yourself in, don't blame anyone else. Don't blame the situation, and just sort yourself out. So again, I asked myself, okay, how can I be useful in this crisis? And how can I make this crisis, my greatest opportunity? And honestly, you wouldn't believe it, Rob. It came to me straight away. It was like, I'm a qualified builder by trade. Even if I hadn't worked on the tools for 25 years, even if that wasn't my passion to be on the tools, I knew that was the answer. And look, I'll tell you now, that next 10-year period since the earthquake has been the most financially successful period of my life. Honestly, I've doubled my income 3 times. There's 3 businesses I started. I got into property investment, and I got into share market investment. I just never looked back. I mean, admittedly, I was actually physically on the tools for the first 12 months, and that was hard work. But I realized this is not the way forward, and I studied project management, and I was helping project manage the repairs, which was fantastic. And again, just around you know, that period of great success, and you're thinking, okay, we're riding high, what's next? And I was even building small relocatable buildings. We had these rented out, and the passive income was flying in. We decided, okay, let's rent our own house out as well when we immigrated back to Australia. But we realized it was sort of like for me, it was like, this is what it feels like being semi-retired, and I hated it. Everyone's aiming for the semi-retirement vibe and just hanging at the beach and just cruising the world. I just could not stand it. I needed to be doing something, productive. So look, we came back, and this is around the time. This was just leading up to the COVID crisis, and again, the crisis is lurking around the next corner. And again, how are we going to make this opportunity out of the crisis great? And we decided actually in the housing boom after the COVID to sell up our rental properties, which put us in a fantastic financial position. We became financially free, and with the extra money we invested in the share market. And so now, I've still got a small business. And when I said side hustle, it's quite interesting. The coaching is my side hustle. My day job is actually still a building consultant. And we've got a small company that specializes in building reports. We do specialist pre-purchase, pre-sale inspections. We're doing weather tightness reports, the whole lot of it. And it's a great business. And I've got it to a situation where really I'm only working part-time, but getting a full-time salary. So that frees me up to follow my passion, which is to coach. And so I'm sort of dedicating around 20 hours a week to do that. But going forward, eventually I'll be segueing into full-time coaching. The goal for me for my future is to be able to work remotely from anywhere in the world, having a fantastic coaching business. A little bit like our conversation the other day about action coaching. And Brad Sugars, like, he's from Brisbane originally, and he lives now in Las Vegas, and he's got, thousands of franchises, and, he's just a success story, you know what I mean? And as I was saying to you the other day, it was quite reading his story, actually, where he started was at a Jim Rohn conference in Brisbane in 1994. And I was actually at that conference. And that was
a lot of parallels,
yeah.
a lot of parallels. And he's
Oh,
over 6,000 franchises now worldwide. They've
incredible.
licensed it to almost every country in the world, and then they sub-license it and sub-license.
Oh, totally. Look, he's an amazing success story, let's be honest. But let me tell you that in 1994, that conference was my first experience with personal development. I mean, like I said, I left school young. I studied photography, but I never really sort of understood the concepts of mind power and this, and just woke me up. Honestly, I remember Jim said, "Look, go out and get The Richest Man in Babylon." That's the book by George S. Clason. And look, I did. The next day, I found the book and read it. And I wasn't really a big reader at that stage, but I realized after reading that book, it's a simple little book about financial strategies. And I recommend it to your listeners today. If you haven't heard of or read it, look, it's a simple read, a really easy to read, but a great base for financial, success. And that really set me on the path. And another thing that I resonated with, which really made me feel great, is he said, look, a formal education will make you a living, but self-education will make you rich. And look, this is my story. I had no formal education, but this personal development, the belief, the mindset. This is all stuff that can push you forward and get you over those roadblocks, which has just been a fantastic journey. And the pinnacle is actually to date is to be a part of the book project with Brian Tracy publishing and the co-authorship. Look, I must show you the book.
Yeah, you pull up a copy. There we go.
Yes, this is
So we'll
succeeding.
make sure and get the link to pick up your copy of Dean's book in the chat area. You'll see the link somewhere around the podcast if you're watching it on YouTube. If you're on Spotify, it'll be just beneath the bio. So Dean, we talked about a few books here. Sorry, you talked about a few books. If you could pick one book for maybe an aspiring entrepreneur, maybe somebody you're working with, is there one book that you would recommend?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's funny you talk about
besides your own.
Look, it was interesting that before you were talking about rugby and of course, yes, I was a rugby player and actually I was lucky in 1998 to actually have played in Canada for the University of British Columbia. It was a New Zealand under-21 Colt team and great memories of Vancouver.
That's right down the street from us, right down the street, the University of British Columbia.
Great memories, and the pit bar was a great memory. And I tell you what, the Canadians beat us on that game, and they also beat us in the boat races too.
Wow,
Canadians can drink beer like drinking water. I tell you what. But okay, back to the book. I don't know if you've heard of Dan Carter, but he's an ex-All Black. He's actually still the greatest rugby player on this planet. He still holds the record for the most points scored in professional rugby, and he's been retired for I think nearly 5 years since the COVID lockdowns. And I've got the book here actually and it's The Art of Winning, and
I like
I
it.
got it signed, and I got it signed by Dan. I went to the book signing, but there's one chapter in this book I wanted to talk about, it's called whakapapa. And it's a Maori word, and it's basically for your roots. You must understand, where you've come from to understand where you're going, and to understand that there's a word called mana, which is like pride. It's a Maori name, a Maori word, and it's to understand the mana of your history and your family, and the fact that you're just a guardian for a short period of time. You're moving the mantle to the next generation, and you need to be leaving it in a better place than you found it. And this is amazing. This book's great. He's a great guy. He's a local Christchurch guy. His ancestry is Irish and Maori, so he has some two great cultures there. And like yourself and like myself, Robert is a big name in our family. We've got a bit thick Scottish background. And my middle name's Robert. My father's middle name's Robert. My several great granddads, Robert. They came from my great granddad came from Glasgow to come to New Zealand as a 12-year-old to start out, and look, it's just the book brings you back to the basics. It's just that we're here for a short period of time, make it count and make it count for the future generations, and have pride and respect for and if this comes back to service. It's only in service to the many is when we will personally find our greatest fulfillment. And I never really understood that until the 2020 when I started mentoring. Honestly, just the joy of helping other people and seeing other people develop, and seeing just sometimes it's just the smallest things, and it goes back to that No Excuses by Brian Tracy. It's that one statement that set me in a direction and I never looked back. It just resonated with me. It was the right time, it was the right statement, and it made me act. And it comes back to my chapter in my book, which is called How to Get Lucky in Any Crisis. And I've come to realize, this is crazy, I've come to realize that, look, the crisis forces us to change as people, okay? Because people like the comfort zone. We like the status quo. So when a crisis arises, this is the greatest opportunity that people don't realize. They sort of dwell on the detail of the pain and now I'm going to lose this and this. It's the change will make you great. So I say, get out of your comfort zone And I never sort of look forward to the next crisis, but look, I know it's coming. Let's be honest. It's coming. And let's be honest, look, the future, the financial uncertainty at the moment is very real. And I don't want to be this doom and gloom sort of outlook, but look, you know, you think the crisis of the COVID lockdown was big. There's going to be greater crises to deal with. So just anticipate it, embrace it, and look for the solutions to solve. And then that comes with great opportunity. Some of my favorite mentors, of course, I like what Bill Gates is doing with his the Bill Gates what do you call it, foundation,
Yes.
where he's developing vaccines and helping for malaria. And look, because what people don't realize, actually, the biggest killer on this planet is actually the mosquito and the malaria bug. It kills more people than any other thing on the planet. So it's the most dangerous creature is the mosquito. And and coming back to the crises, it's just looking for that opportunity and really going for it. Yeah, I was just going to come back. That's right. The other great crises or things that are coming up, of course, and other great mentors, like Mr. Musk, Elon Musk. I mean, whether you like him or not, he looks at the problems and the future crisis, and he's coming up with possible solutions to that problem. So you got to admire the guy. I know he's a bit wacky.
Trying to solve problems before they happen.
Absolutely. Look, and you got to take your hat off. The guy puts his money where his mouth is. The money he spends on the Starship program, to further for us, in service of us, because this planet is unstable. Let's be honest, how many times has there been mass extinctions? We are very vulnerable. He is almost like our Lord and Savior. I know it sounds wacky, but he could be the man that saves humanity by making us interplanetary species. And this has to happen. And ChatGPT, do you know what the GBT stands for? Yeah, generative pre-planned transformers. So
Wow.
that's the acronym. Yeah, generative pre-planned, pre-trained transformers. It's I don't know if you've of course everyone's had a dabble with the ChatGPT. And look, a funny story is I'll recommend another book. I'll recommend it for the wrong reason. Don't get it. It's rubbish.
So everyone's going to buy it.
No, don't read this book. It's absolute rubbish. But anyway, when I found out about ChatGPT, which was sort of early last year, and this was before the opportunity with Brian Tracy, but I thought, what is this? And I started sort of playing around like we do, ask questions and stuff. And I sort of thought, well, how could you leverage this, to save time, And I said, okay, I'm gonna set myself a challenge. I'm gonna give myself 24 hours to write a book, publish the book, and have it for sale on Amazon.com, right? And I even asked ChatGPT, I said, can you write a book and publish it on Amazon in less than 24 hours? And the answer came back, no, it's not possible. It's just impossible. So I proved ChatGPT wrong, and I'll show you the book.
So this is favorite book number 4.
Live Life Lucky. How to get lucky in absolutely everything. Dean Norrie presents. So it's like I'm being up front that I didn't really write it. I made the prompts and I pushed it through and I put it out in a template. I designed the cover on Canva. I submitted it to Amazon, and it's up there for sale. It's just it's crazy. Look, it's not great, but look, there's some great prompts. I mean, like how to achieve your greatest goals, how to win under pressure in sporting competitions, how to pass exams achieving A grades. It just gives you the typical ChatGPT breakdown. And I didn't edit any of it. I just cut and paste, put it into a book formula, popped it on there in less than 24 hours. So look, if someone out there is really passionate about putting together short informational books,
we'll make sure to post that in the notes on books not to buy.
Yeah, please don't read it. Please don't judge me on that. Look, it's just an experiment. And look, that's what life is, isn't it? A whole bunch of experiments. And
lots of experiments have made people millions, even hundreds of millions of dollars.
Well, that's exactly right. exactly. And even experiments that go horribly wrong. In fact, I mean, I love the Scottish scientist Alexander Fleming, with the penicillin story, where the petri dish, and it was an accident that they realized that penicillin kills bacteria. That accident, in the lab, was saved absolutely millions of people on this planet today. I mean,
Maybe
penicillin's,
tens of millions.
oh, just phenomenal. And actually, an interesting story. Not many people know, but Winston Churchill, in fact, was a colleague of Alexander Fleming. And what's an interesting fact that a lot of people don't realize, Alexander Fleming actually saved Winston Peters' life twice. As a young person, he was drowning. I'm not sure where, but he was in drowning, and the Fleming saved him from drowning. And then later, after penicillin was discovered, Mr. Churchill had, I think it was a car crash, and there was a major infection and what have you, and it was the fact that the antibiotic and the penicillin, which was invented by Alexander Fleming, kind of saved his life. And how would the world look if Winston Churchill wasn't alive through the Second World War? Would it have been a different outcome? Who knows?
If he wasn't there, and there's been a few movies made around that as well.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, I love those how it could have looked. Yeah, I love those sort of stories.
So you have a few books that is amazing. Even one that you're not recommending, which I'm sure people are going to buy now. We'll make sure and make a note. Do not buy this one, but we'll put the do not buy link from Amazon on there as well.
Okay.
We'll have a
Um,
little bit of fun with it.
oh,
So wrapping up here, thanks again, Dean, for coming on and spending some valuable time with us. I'm sure that the listeners viewing this podcast are going to reach out to you. Again, the links will be in the comments. So maybe in closing here, something that you can share other than the book, maybe your own sound advice, something you've been through, something that you can give people looking to start a side hustle, whatever stage they're at. They're at the beginning, they're starting out, they're facing adversity, they're selling their business, they're exiting. At any stage, what would be the one piece of advice that you would give a business owner?
that's a really good question, Robert. I'm a big believer of, feel the fear, but do it anyway. Because sometimes fear, in a sense, is telling you a story that's what you should be doing, which is ironic. So, if you're having some nightmares about something, confront those fears. That's the only way you can ever beat a phobia or beat any roadblock. Just feel the fear, do it anyway. And just one other thing I just wanted to close on is what I really enjoy helping my clients achieve is finding their personal GPS. And I don't mean, the guidance positioning system. I mean the goals, their plan, and their strategy to achieve what the ultimate outcome for them. So that's really my passion, is working with my clients to achieve their goals. And we always work usually on a 12 months one-on-one mentoring and coaching program, but we are establishing some new online courses, and also going on your advice about feel the fear and do it anyway with my podcast, which I haven't launched yet. And a little bit was around coming up with that name and what I was going to do. And the name came to me after our conversation. And
Awesome.
Do you want to hear it? Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, let's breaking news here on the Side Hustle podcast. You heard it here first, folks. Things they don't tell you at the 5 o'clock news.
So my idea, and I think it's a goer, it's the Lucky Crisis podcast. It's coming from adversity to greatness. So it's about interviewing people a little bit about my story, the earthquake story, how it was a horrible tragedy, and it was a midlife crisis and the whole thing. And then where I ended up, how I phoenixed, the Greek bird phoenixing from the ashes. I think this is a great, interesting conversation to have with everybody. I think everyone's got this lucky crisis story. I mean, it's almost like the yin and the yang. You can't have the night without the day. You can't have the evil without the good. It's just the same thing.
Darkness without light. All the
lucky crisis. So I'm aiming for a launch maybe next month, and would you be my guest? Robert, I'd love
Definitely, I'll be your
love
guest.
to have
Reach out.
you.
I'll be the guinea pig. I've been the guinea pig for a few already.
Oh,
We've done about 300 webinars. We're converting some of them, but this is podcast number 20. And
wow,
it
fantastic.
started the same way.
Oh,
Didn't know how to set it up. Started, so just launch. Brian Tracy says he'll love this. We're giving him lots of plugs. I hope the check is in the mail, but he said, people who don't start end up on Someday Isle. Do you know where
I
that
love
island is? Yeah, someday I'll get around to it. Someday I'll start that business I should have started someday. So hopefully Dean here gave you a bit of inspiration, showing you how to start, overcome the adversity. Reach out, bettabusiness.com, BETTA business.com. It'll be in the links. Thanks a million for coming out, Dean.
Hey, thanks, Robert. It's been a real honor and pleasure. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
That's our cut. We'll keep it rolling. One thing
Yeah.
I told Alex that we do when she was on, Alex Quinn, that's in the group, is we
Yes.
will keep recording for a bit, but we put these on the outtakes at the end of our podcasts.
Fantastic. I love
I
it.
got that idea in the movie. I was sitting watching a movie and you know, was with my daughter, and she said, "Dad, wait. They're gonna have some trailers and some, cuts at the end or a message. You gotta wait." I'm like, when did they start doing this? And I thought it was the coolest idea. And the next morning, I wanted to get out because the next morning we're recording a podcast, and I had to be up early, kind of like you did graciously to come on early. It was the opposite, so I had to get up early, and I was thinking about it that night, and the next morning, the idea just came to me.
I
Just
love
came to
the
me.
idea. You can be a
Yeah.
bit wacky and a bit crazy at the end. I love it.
Well, people watch it to the end, and regardless of, some will just fast forward to the end to hear the outtakes.
Wow, no. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm a big Star Wars fan, and it was and James Earl Jones, the voice of
Yeah, Darth Vader.
Vader, he was something else. That voice, I just want to I wanted to be a bit wacky, and I just wanted to do something a bit crazy. See what you think of this. Hang on, I'll turn this off. So use the force there, Robert, for good. Use the force.
Or good. I thought you were going to give us the James Earl Jones voice. I'll tell you a
Yeah,
funny story
I can't do that.
about Star Wars, and I'll have to do I think I was 9 or 10 years old when Star Wars first came out, and a good friend of mine, my lifelong friend, he's a big Star Wars fan. I never really got into the sci-fi movies, but I still remember he said, "Let's go downtown and watch the movie." We were 9 and 10 years old.
Yeah.
This is 1975, 1976. I can't remember exactly when it came out. I'll have to Google it, but we snuck out downtown for the early show so we could be back in time for dinner. But the lineup was around the block, and he wanted to see that movie so bad.
Oh
We
yeah.
we waited and waited, and the lady behind us, she said, "Are you guys you kids old enough to be in here?" We said, "I don't think so," but she said, "Okay, you can say you're with me." So we waited for the next film, and we got home 9:30 at night, and my mother almost killed us. I'm sure his mother gave it to him as well, but it was that big an event back then that people were lining up for 2 and 3 movies waiting to get in.
Oh, Robert, it's a similar story for me as well. It was kind of the first film that I went to by myself, and I think I was only 7 or 8 as well. And we went multiple times, and just the movie was phenomenal back for that era, and just the story, that hero story. It was just riveting. It was it just sort of captured people's imagination, what the future could look like. And let's be honest, fiction always turns into non-fiction. It's this,
Yes.
how does that happen? I mean, that just,
Star Trek with the flip phones.
oh,
And now
it's
we've
fi-
gone past that. We have no more flip phones.
oh, fiction to non-fiction. It's insane. How does that happen? Like, it just proves that what you think you can materialize. So, be careful what you're thinking.
I just Googled it, 1977, so I wasn't
It's
far off with the dates.
spot on. No, I mean, it was an epic film. Let's be honest. It was amazing.
Yeah,
No,
great.
Had to do
So
that.
so off to our workday now. You're early morning there. We're midday here. We're a day and a half behind you. Who won the football game there? Let us know so we can place our bets.
Yes, look, the All Blacks usually always win, but
There you go.
they haven't been winning lately. But they did win against Australia in the weekend, and it's called the Bledisloe Cup, and which means the All Blacks actually retained the shield. So we're still doing well there.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, love
Okay,
it.
mate. Thanks a million for coming on. We'll make sure and get you a copy of the raw footage, but also the edited copy. So
That sounds great, man.
you'll
No,
have
hey, you're great. You're so good at this, Rob. It's natural.
It
This
wasn't
is
always thus. It wasn't always thus. That's what Brian Tracy says. I
true.
say it wasn't always like this, but he says it wasn't always thus. He has a expression for everything.
Oh,
But
he's
I
got a great.
actually I don't know if you can see the three plaques on the wall are from
Yes.
Toastmasters International.
Oh, fantastic.
So I had struggled speaking in front of crowds. I failed out of the accounting program because I failed the communication course 3 times.
Wow.
And that's how I left the accounting program and went into the trades like you. But I had an opportunity to pitch on Dragon's Den with the broadcasting company here, which is, an international syndicated TV show for entrepreneurs. So I pitched our business in 2012, and a friend suggested I go to Toastmasters. As a
Yes.
result of 6 months in Toastmasters, I nailed the audition, got to audition on the show, and got a deal in 2012,
Oh,
all
fantastic.
because of Toastmasters. And I stuck with the program. So I have 3 distinguished Toastmasters awards. That's the
Wow.
highest level you can go. And I've done it 3 times now.
Oh, fantastic. Oh,
So
a real credit to you, Robert. I mean, I've did Toastmasters for 12 months, but I kind of got busy with my day job and then the
it's,
hustle and
I find it as a little bit, some people say it's a low level speaking program, but I make the analogy to who is the last baseball player to bat 400? I'll find the name. Thank God for Google.
I love Google. God, where would we
So
be at with that?
Ted Williams. So I don't know if you follow baseball, but a batting average is number of times you get up to hit the ball, or the number of times you get on base over the number of times. So if you at bat 10 times and you get on base 4 times, it's a 400 average. Well,
Wow.
nobody in the major leagues has batted over 300 now in 50 years. But Ted Williams did it. And weeks before the end of the season, he was nobody could find him. He was hiding out from the media, the press. This is in the 50s, I think. And somebody told one of the reporters, tipped him off, said, "You got to come at 6 in the morning to the field. He's practicing every morning at 6 a.m. to avoid all the mayhem." And they went out and they have a tube. It's kind of like a 4 inch across tube that they put the ball on. And you hit the ball off of that tube. Nobody's throwing the ball at you. It'd be like cricket putting it on a stand and practicing. And the reporter asked him why, we won't put this in the paper, but I want to know why you're batting it off a tee. He said, well, the coach identified something. He said, I'm taking my eye off the ball.
Ah,
So this is when you're 8, 9, and 10 years old practicing baseball, they put the ball on a tee so you can practice your eye watching the bat hit the ball. 3 weeks later, he got the hits that he needed to bat 400, the last player ever to do it. But I make the analogy to hitting the ball off the tee to Toastmasters. It's the basics. They teach you all the basics that you need.
absolutely. Absolutely. The
When
basics.
I
Yeah.
watch speakers now, I watch them for all of these things that they do, and they all do it. They all do, 9 out of 10 great, maybe one, maybe not so great. Brian Tracy uses the hand gestures.
Yeah,
Anthony
he's
Robbins uses the voice.
yes.
Grant Cardone uses the enthusiasm in the voice. Like they all use something, but if you can put all those together, you can command the
Yes.
stage.
Actually, funny thing about eye on the ball, actually, I was getting my daughter into tennis.
Yes.
We're hitting around a lot, and then one day the ball hit her in the eye.
Oh, yeah.
Luckily it wasn't hard. And I said to her, Grace, look, you got to keep your eye on the ball, not the ball in your eye. And she hated me for it, but I thought that was again, that's so true. It's like, when you're playing tennis, you got to be watching that ball the whole time. Otherwise, you do get that ball in your
Or
eye.
or in baseball, or in business, it's just the basics, and we forget about the basics sometimes.
Oh, we do. We overcomplicate it as human beings. We tend to overcomplicate everything. Keep it simple, stupid. the KISS philosophy. Just keep it simple.
We'll get a
Understand.
chance to meet in San Diego.
I can't wait.
Yeah,
I'm so looking forward
it's
to it.
gonna be fun. My
Yeah.
goal is to all the authors in this book. I asked Medhat and Jimmy. I said any way I could get if the book's ready by then, get 100 copies because I want to
Wow.
get 100 copies signed by everybody. Everybody signed their chapter, including Brian, and we're going to
Yes.
auction those books off on our website for charity.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's a great, yeah, wonderful idea.
Do a
No, I love
little promotion around it, and that'll maybe. And then I hope I don't tip off too many people because they're gonna have to order a truckload of books for San Diego
Oh
if
yeah.
everybody orders 100 books.
It's a great idea. Look, I must admit, it's really great connecting with all the other authors
Yeah,
off the board.
it's
It's
been great. Yeah, it's been
great opportunity.
inspiring. It's been
Yeah,
inspiring hearing the
yeah.
stories. But your story, I went from high school building houses till I
Oh,
was, I stopped doing financial stuff and I broke my neck in '96.
oh, gee
To
whiz.
and I was almost I made a comeback. I was boxing then and made a comeback. I had 152 amateur fights, but made a run for the 2000 Olympics and was a fight away from going to the international qualifier for the 2000 Olympics.
Wow.
I had to win, I think it was 18 straight fights through all the qualifiers. You can't lose, and lost the last one.
Oh,
So,
gee whiz.
but close. Close is that's I was happy with it. That's would have been
Wow.
happier, getting a team jacket going to Sydney, but I can always go to Sydney.
Well, that's exactly right. Actually, did you know this time last year we were actually in Vancouver and it was our wedding anniversary. It was 13 years, lucky for some. And we took a boat plane over to Victoria and
Oh, great. Yeah.
we had a high tea at the Empress Hotel. Oh,
Oh, wow.
amazing. It was so memorable. And I was telling you, we went up to the Grouse Mountain on at the end of our cruise because we didn't see any bears on the cruise. Of course, we saw lots of other wildlife like whales and the bald eagles and things, lots of other wildlife, and plenty of salmon. It was amazing.
Yes, yes.
And the seafood like the king crab and the halibut. Oh my God, I haven't.
We take it for granted here.
Oh, that halibut, I cannot. It's just the taste. It's just perfection. So, oh, but anyway, so we went up to Grouse Mountain, and it was just fascinating to get up so close to those two grizzly bears. Cooler and Grinder. Just and I was quite lucky because being the photographer, I was sort of trying to get the right shot, and I got a really great shot of them getting a bit grumpy at each other because it was they're sort of stocking up for the winter, and
Yeah.
they were getting angry at each other, and it was sort of a bit of a mini spat. And anyway, we get back to the hotel, and I thought, right, I always like to do a post on Facebook to see where we've been over, and get those memories, and it's like a photo album for the family, and so I'm not eager to get these shots up on Facebook, and it didn't seem to crash or something, so I tried it again, and I think I tried it half a dozen or so times. I just couldn't get it working, and I thought, oh, it must be the internet or something slow, and it keeps crashing out. But then we switched on the news, and a couple of people were mauled to death by a bear just in Banff. And then it clicked. I realized, oh, I've been censored. Social media has censored me, and I'm thinking, how do I feel about that? And I thought, I don't know if I feel good about that, but look, that's the way the world's heading. But anyway, I got back to New Zealand and I managed to get them posted, but look, it's yeah, and I get the censorship is important in some cases. So look, I understand it, but it was the first experience to being censored in that way, and it was yeah, it was an interesting feeling, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
humbling feeling. My uncle, I forgot to mention, I let you talk there about your wedding photography, but I worked with my uncle when I was a teen for 2 summers. He did wedding photography and modeling photography, and my job was to take care of the cameras. Again, this is the 1980s. My job was to take care of the cameras and make sure the ice packs were packed with the film. So, and my job was to reload the film and put the used film in the ice packs. And I remember one thing he told me about photography. He said, you never actually see the picture you take.
Yes.
He said, because the shutters close when the picture is taken. You can't actually tell the picture until you process the film. And he used to have his own little development lab, and people used to do that back then. Now you get instant satisfaction. 10 pictures a second or something with the average iPhone. But, that was my memory. You never actually see the photo until, and that reminded me of Kevin Carter. He won a Pulitzer Prize for photography. I don't know if you know his photo of the vulture hovering over the infant in the desert in Africa.
Yeah, I think I have seen that image.
And he took that photo and he never actually looked at it till he got back to America, and he sent it into the paper, and the paper published it, and the international community picked up the photo, and he became famous. He won a Pulitzer Prize. 6 months later, he killed himself because you could read the story. Kevin Carter, he killed himself because of the grief. People were asking him, what happened to the child? Did you not pick up the child? And he's in the middle of the desert himself, trying to follow this tribe across the desert, and he didn't have water, and he could have, died himself. And when you read his story, it's a pretty amazing story. All of the horrific photography that he'd done. He'd filmed people being set on fire in Thailand, and so it could be such a crazy career, depending what type of photography you're in.
Yeah, no, I must admit, war photography or photojournalism photography, that's specializing in those sort of scenes. Yeah, it never sort of attracted me, but I was sort of more the wildlife.
Yeah.
And people. I really sort of connected with people, and I like the social side of it, where you're kind of working with the person to get the best out of them.
I'm sure you'll have your camera rolling in San Diego.
Yeah, well, hopefully, yes. But oh, well, actually, interesting fact about suicide, which it's not a study that I'd heard previous, but I heard a speaker talk about that. There's what's one sort of factor about suicide that's a commonality across most of suicides, not all. And the fact is that they haven't had a major failure in their life prior to that. Like the A student gets the best girl, they marry, the best house, the best job, this never fails, and then something happens, like the marriage fails. They can't bounce back from failing forward, and they just can't see past.
They've had all the minor failures, but not a major one. And
so, so again, failing forward is important because it teaches you resilience. And I really, that was interesting to hear that. I mean, I don't know how the facts around that, how they were gathered, but it does make sense. But back to photography. My passion for photography, when back in the day when it was the dark room, that's when I was studying on film, black and white. It was magic. It was, you go out with your film, and then you come back and develop the film, and then you're processing in the dark room, and it's just appearing on the paper in the trough. When now the digital, it's, I don't know, like you say, you just click and you don't even frame it. You just frame it later in post-production.
I'm going to share Platone's website. So here's a guy that started out with wanted to learn photography. So he lied on his resume to get a job at the newspaper, and his first photo shoot is with Anthony Hopkins.
Oh.
And here's, I just put his link in the chat, platonephoto.com. Such an interest, and he spoke for an hour, riveting speaker as well.
Wow.
Just riveting. Oh, the stories and the interaction with the crowd. It was like, his story was riveting, but also watching him as a speaker was riveting.
Wow. No, I have fond memories. I worked for 2 years at the Christchurch Star newspaper, but it wasn't actually as a journalist photographer. It was actually in the art department. We were visualizing graphic artists as well as, and I do lots of commercial photography for covers and things that for the supplement newspapers that went in there. That was a great time.
Lots to learn. Okay, mate. I look forward to seeing you in San Diego, and we'll make sure and get you copies of everything before it goes live, in case there's anything you want us to cut out. It should be all good. It should be all good.
Hey, thanks, Robert. Hey,
okay, thanks a million, mate.
Okay, take well.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey everybody, welcome to we call it the Side Hustle podcast. There's a reason for that. We have an affiliate program for our financial services, and we have a about 3,000 people in Canada. You know, our limit is the Canadian border. So we have about 3,000 people on our affiliate program. And one guy said, "Oh, this is like a side hustle for my side hustle." So we just came up with it. We named it different than, because I know you're thinking about a podcast. We named it different than our company name. We didn't call it Mr. Taxes Podcast or Mr. Insurance Podcast. I took a page out of Patrick Bet-David's book. Do you know Patrick Bet-David?
No,
I'll
actually.
get the name to you. He sold his insurance company in the US for 600 million US.
Wow.
You know, it's 100 million Canadian with 30,000 advisors. But he had a podcast, and I watched his podcast for years. I never knew he was in the insurance industry. You know, we work on accounting, insurance, investments, but I never knew that. So when I decided on our podcast, we had to come up with a name. We just thought we'd brand it something completely different. So you can go with your own brand, you know, the Dean Norrie brand, or, you know,
Yes.
create an impartial name that nobody knows about. But then when they Google it, they find out who you are.
Well, that's right. No, it's amazing. No, I really love the podcast name actually, the side hustle. It's it's something I've always had side hustles all the time. I mean, being an entrepreneur like yourself, you're always thinking, what's next? What can I do? What can I start? And back in the day, we called it moonlighting.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
I
no,
haven't heard that term in a long time.
yeah, that's pretty old school. It's
I'm 58, so you know you're probably around the same age.
yes, yeah, yeah. They're
I
54 at the moment. They're
I,
55 next year.
I remember those terms. Yeah, that term moonlighting.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
couple songs with that in it. Hey, real
Well,
quick, tighten up your tie there. Tighten up your tie, and then we'll start. We're recording already, but they will edit it out. You know, the beginning stuff, and then we'll roll.
sure, sounds
Yeah,
good.
I never do my tie up. It's a formality. Guys
Uh,
downtown, guys
I like that.
downtown,
Yeah, I like your style. Love your
guys
style.
downtown. They started leaving their tie undone.
Oh yeah. All right. So that's the thing.
So now apparently it's catching on. I don't know. It's a new style. Okay, you ready to roll?
Let's do this.
Okay, let's do it.